Hey, what's up, you guys? Welcome back to another episode of Man Plays Incel Game and Rambles About. I just finished recording my last video, and guess what? I want to do another one, so I'm gonna do another one. So I just finished Man Plays Incel Game and talks about the economy again. Rambles about the economy again. Did I put talked? I did put rambles. I verbally saying it, I feel like I keep messing up the name. When I type it, I always type it this. Anyway, I just finished Rambles about the economy again. And I talked a lot about how I feel kind of just apathetic, or not apathetic, just like kind of generally worried. It's not really like a. I don't know, anyway, the fact that I don't feel confident about the future, how I feel like, people aren't making any money and the prices of things are going up, and it feels like it's just going to continue getting worse. And so, that prompted me to talk about the mental health crisis among Gen Z, because I think they're directly related, but I don't think it's the only reason. So I'm going to talk about my experience as well as just general things that are going on. So the first thing, just as a quick summary of my last video, that it feels like the economy is kind of hopeless. Like, it feels like I'm going to college and I should be super excited about that, but I don't see a great future in, like, the economy of the United States going forward, just because I see that all of the prices are going up and the wages are staying stagnant. I hear all of these people talking about how they can't afford to live, how they need to have 5 roommates to afford, like, just a normal apartment, how, like, there's so many people that say just, like, I can't make rent, my landlord raised it again, and I can't do this, how 50% of Americans can't afford a $500 emergency, how, like, just things like that, where it's, like, anecdotal experiences of people just saying, I am not doing well in this economy. And it almost seems insulting that I still see, like, political figures saying that the economy is booming, that I don't know, it feels like a stupid debate to ask whether, like, so this is 2024, an election year, the debates just happened, but a lot of people are talking about, was the economy better under Trump's administration or Biden's administration, and the answer is it feels like it's just been bad in both of them. It almost feels like a joke to be like, the economy was good under my administration, because to the average everyday person, it hasn't been at all. And I don't know, so generally that stuff about the economy. On top of, I think that a major thing is just general apathy about, like, I will never be able to afford a house, I will never be able to afford a new car, or to, like, just have the financial freedom to not scrutinize every purchase that I make, because, like, that's just, it feels like things are bad and they're just going to get worse, so it's just generally a negative outlook on the future that the entire generation of Gen Z holds. And on top of this, the internet generally is just, like, the internet generally just kind of ruined the way that people talk to each other. So, like, where in the past most of the emphasis was placed on in-person connections, where, like, so I'm thinking, like, okay, if you think back to, like, the 70s or the 80s, absolutely most of the emphasis was placed on actual in-person human connection, But you still had like a landline phone if you wanted to call someone. The thing was that landline phone was shared by the entire house, and only one person could call anyone at once. So like it's so like there was just sort of like an extra barrier to like, and also like your little sibling could grab the phone and like hear everything that you were saying. It didn't feel as private, it didn't feel as genuine. And it just sort of wasn't something that like I was super like, not very many people would prefer sitting and talking on the phone to actually hanging out in person. It didn't feel like it was something you could do for an extended period of time without like, I don't know, feeling pressure. And it just generally wasn't something that people did all day long. You would hang out with people during the day. And so then I think of like the 90s, early 2000s, where the internet starts to surface, and like things like Xbox Live start to surface, where you can talk to people and have genuine experiences for longer periods of time. Well, I guess not in the 90s because I was like dial-up internet, but like like the 2000s is like you can hang out with people virtually, and that is a genuine like way to connect with people, but there's still sort of a priority on hanging out with people in person. It feels like added because you didn't have like phones, you didn't have an iPhone. Like you could hop on like MySpace or something. I don't, MySpace was before my time. But like you could go on MySpace, you could go on an Xbox game and sort of talk to people digitally and hang out, but it was very confined to a space. These weren't very mobile things. So it was harder to like just sort of like, the priority was always I want to hang out with people in person. Especially I think that was reflected a lot by like the Wii, because that was a console that you had to play with people in person. Things before that were like, I don't know, like the Atari, that's not really something that you would like invite people over to play, at least not to my knowledge. I can't imagine that happening super often. Or like, I mean, I guess it probably happened, but it wasn't as big as like the Wii, where it's like, come over and play Just Dance, But the priority was still hang out with people in person. Like, the priority is put on hanging out with people in person until the advent of social media, where it switched to not being in person. And then people started to get miserable because they were wondering why this like fake connection wasn't working as well as the real connection that everyone wants and was previously used to. So I grew up in the early 2000s. So I was someone that not exactly grew up on social media, but like I can't really remember a time before it existing. Like I have vague memories of my parents having flip phones, but that I can't remember anything on them, like because people my age say like they can remember playing like Snake on their parents' flip phones, or like calling their friend using their parents' flip phone or something like that. And I don't, like, it was very, like, the vague memory of, like, this isn't really relevant, who cares? But anyway, I don't really remember a time before smartphones, because I was born in 2005, and smartphones were more or less born in 2007, so I wasn't really conscious before them. And so you can. So I didn't have social media by choice. Like I intentionally didn't have social media until I was 14, which is honestly like a best case scenario in my generation. Because I think that social media ruined a lot of my peers from a younger age, but I always thought it was kind of a weird concept, and I wasn't allowed to download it anyway. When I was 14, I downloaded it behind my parents' back, because they didn't have any restrictions on my phone, so I could just download it. But um, social media has sort of replaced genuine human connection. I'm kind of scattered here. But social media has replaced genuine human connection and changed the priority from hanging out in person to, like, I want to say hanging out digitally, even though that doesn't make as much sense. So, where before you would have hung out in person, now, or like before you would have called someone, now you're going to text someone. Before you would have hung out in person, now you're just going to like send a couple of memes or reels or TikToks back and forth. Um, or maybe like play some game online. Because hanging out with someone feels like much more of an event now. Hanging out with someone requires more like planning now. You can't really just pop over to someone's house like you used to be able to, because it's just not expected anymore. It's not the norm. It's hard to find a place to just sort of hang out and not spend a lot of money, because especially given the economy that we're in, it's hard to spend money, but that's always sort of been the case. There just used to be cheap, like, coffee shops and cafes where people would hang out, or like the mall where you could just sort of walk around. And yeah, like, it was centered around consumerism, but like, you could just walk around and not buy anything. You could take up space. Or you could go to a restaurant and just buy fries and take up space at a table for an extended period of time, because that was the culture and that was what you did. You would hang out with a group of friends and you would do that. Now that's not really the culture anymore. So, it's harder to just sort of like find, it's the concept of a third space. So like, home is your first place, work or school is your second place, and your third place is where you go when you're not at one of those two places. Like, I used to have a restaurant that I would go to, and then COVID kind of, it didn't kill off the restaurant, but it definitely increased the like pressure to not just sit there for an extended period of time. Like, it increased the pressure to like leave when you were done type thing. Like, I remember I went to a restaurant with a friend recently. I feel like I might have referenced this in one of my other videos, but I went to a restaurant with a friend recently, and it was after like an AP test, like a big test, and we were just sort of like sitting at a table. We were, hanging out and talking. She had been like, she had been doing a million things for the past few weeks. So we hadn't really had a good time to just sit and talk. So we got food at this restaurant, and then we were just, sitting there talking for a while. And we got asked 3 separate times, like, whenever you're ready, the check's right at the front, or like, you can pay the check at the front. Like, just sort of getting asked to leave, basically, several times. Like, the waiter would come to our table and say, hey, just, whenever you're ready, just whenever you're ready, you can come to the front. Just like, and I don't like the way I'm talking right now. I feel like it's very scattered and not as like formal and coherent as I know that I can be. But stuff like that bothers me, because like, it used to be the social norm to just sit at a place, sort of just take up space with a group of friends just to be there and be together. And now, with the internet taking up most of our times and it being more like, I don't want to say fun, but like, you can just sit at home and it's easier to entertain yourself. Whereas, like, I previously, before like the internet was as big of a thing, if you were sitting at home, you were maybe watching TV or you were like reading a book. The people that liked being alone were a very specific, like, niche group of people that really liked reading and that really liked, things like that, like solitary activities. Whereas now, everyone goes on their phones, regardless of if you're the most social person in the world or you're a complete introvert. Everyone goes on their phones. And and everyone has extended periods of time where they're just alone, where they're on their phones, but there are no other people around. And that is like necessarily a part of being a teenager nowadays. And that, like, and that makes it like, that's pretty obvious where there would be like a mental health issue there, right? Where you're having like extended periods of time just alone, and you're not completely alone, like you have entertainment. Oh man, I did really try. Oh well. Like you have entertainment, but like it is still a solitary activity where you might not have necessarily wanted to be alone, you know? It's a solitary activity where, oh come on, yes. Where the preference probably would have been to go out and hang out with someone, but it's such a thing to hang out with someone, it's such a thing to ask if someone's busy, and to like, I don't know, set up something to hang out in person, because you either have to like invite them over your house and you have to clean your whole house for that, or you have to like ask if you can come over their house, which is kind of awkward because it's hard to find a third place outside of just home or work/school where you can hang out, because places aren't built for that anymore, and the places that were kind of died out when people preferred to go on their phones instead of hanging out in these third places for, you know, a few years before people started really craving it again. And it just, everything sucks. You know, it's hard to hang out with people in person, and that drives a lot of isolation and loneliness, because you just can't really like hang out with people like you used to be able to. And and like, not only that, but like, I mean, previously, say you were okay, buddy, say you were like sitting at home one night in any time before like the 2010s. I'm just saying like the before times. It really doesn't matter what time period you're thinking of. Like me personally, I'm thinking of the 80s because I'm thinking of my mom, and that's when she grew up, and I'm thinking of my mom when she was my age. But like, again, really, you can be thinking of any period of time, because it just, you would sit down and watch TV, right? You say you're bored, it's nighttime, you're like, you can't really hang out with anyone right now, or no one's free, and you're trying to entertain yourself. You watch TV, you're watching the same stuff as everyone else. Like, you're watching, there's only a few TV shows, nothing specifically catered to everyone. Everything is catered to a more general audience. And so everyone consumes the same stuff, everyone consumes the same advertisements, everyone just, like, watches the same stuff, gets, like, style inspiration from the same stuff. Everyone, like, gathers, like, knowledge on new products, I guess. Like, I'm just thinking of, like, things that are, like, fads or trends were much more defined before the 2010s, when social media came around, because everyone consumed the exact same content. Everyone got their, like, I don't want to say ideas from the same place, but like something that my mom has talked about has been like, if you watched like Friends, that's what everyone dressed like in the 90s, because Friends was the big show in the 90s. So since that was something that everyone was watching, that's just kind of how everyone dressed and acted like and talked, because since it had such a big, like, cultural, like, I don't, it just had such a big impact on culture that, it had such a big impact on culture that it was, like, it, like, defined that, like, the general style of that time period. And there isn't really anything like that now. which, because everything is more individualized, there is no one show that everyone watches now. Everything's on streaming services instead of cable TV. Everything's hyper catered towards specific audiences, and everyone watches different things. Everyone consumes different things on their phones, gets different ads, gets different, like, has different perceptions of what they think are cool, or, like, I don't want to say, like, trendy, but, like, if I went on TikTok, my specific side of TikTok is, or, like, side, just, like, the type of videos that I would be fed on TikTok would be more like alternative content. So I would see people dressing on a more, like, with a more alternative style than the norm. But I think that that kind of stuff is cool because that's what I'm fed constantly. That's what I'm given. Man. Whoa, what? I wasn't really paying attention. I was just trying to kill the guy. I don't know how I died there. Anyway, but since I'm fed this, like, alternative content, I'm thinking that, like, a big eyeliner and wearing black. I'm wearing black right now. And, like, you know, that kind of, like, it's a very general look, but, like, generally more, like, out there styles and things that are sort of unconventional or things that bring back different eras, I tend to think are, like, trendy and popular because that's what I see. I'm actually not on TikTok right now, but that's what I did see. So that's what I know that I would see. But, like, everyone has their own different, like, everyone is fed different things. So everyone has their own sort of perception about what's, like, I don't want to say cool and trendy. That feels like just unnatural and kind of weird. But, like, everyone has their own perception of what, quote, everyone dresses like, or everyone like me looks like, or acts like. Whereas when there was more of a monoculture where everyone consumed the same stuff, it just, everyone was coming from the same place. You know what I'm saying? Like, oh man. Oh well. Like, everyone was consuming the same stuff, everyone was looking at the same people for inspiration, everyone was looking at the same ads for the next new thing to buy, and now everything's more targeted, so everyone's looking at different things, and part of that, like, in theory, that's good, right? Individualism is good. People being able to express their own unique styles and things are good. But when it becomes bad is when there's no monoculture, which means that there really isn't anything that ties any given two people together. If I find someone that isn't on the same side of social media that I am, or the same, like, general stuff, you know, if someone doesn't consume the same general things as me, I don't really have that much in common with them. If they have a different set of interests, the stuff that they consume is catered towards them, and the stuff that I consume is catered towards me, and we don't have any common ground anymore. Where it used to be that the monoculture kind of had to cater to all, and had to include elements that generally everyone thought was funny or interesting, or, like, just something to be commented about, or, like, oh, I like that style, and was something that everyone could more or less agree on, or at least reference, understand, and know. You've just sort of lost that connection now, that not everyone knows the same stuff. Not everyone knows the same stuff, and so generally it's just harder for any given people to connect to each other, you know? Like, yeah, if you're on the same, like, parts of social media and you consume the same stuff, then it, like, you can have a connection from that, but it makes it harder to just generally have a conversation with someone. It makes it harder to, not knowing anything about someone, be able to inherently connect with them or be able to know that this thing will connect with them. Whereas in the age of monoculture, which was an age for like decades, I'm just like, but like, in a time where there is a huge monoculture, it's easier to just reference the episode of Friends that was on last night that most people watched, or a common rerun of it, or like, you know, like a joke that everyone tends to make. Whereas these things are now just hyper individualized, and like, it's just like, it's harder to just make that baseline connection with someone, because you can make a joke, but there's a chance that the person you're talking to doesn't even understand it because they haven't consumed the right content to understand the reference that that joke is making. And it just makes everything harder to connect. So not only are you not hanging out with people in person, there isn't really anything that intrinsically ties you together. So it's harder to have it's harder to have a normal conversation with someone. It's harder to find a way to hang out with that person in person. This sucks. You're not doing well. It just sort of makes everything harder, and then on top of that, the economy really isn't helping anything. So the economy is what I was talking about in my last video, and how I'm specifically stressed about that, but the fact that it feels like we're in a failing economy on top of just like a failing everything with friendship, just makes everything worse. And then on top of that, not just to even say that, so social media is bad because it takes away from time that you could be hanging out with other people, but also in that, like, the nature of it is very addictive, and that the nature of it is like shock value content and stuff that's like, you think of news, and how all news is really negative because that's what, like, news tends to be negative because that's what gets people to pay attention when there's like shocking negative news that, you know, everyone needs to hear about, or like, it's just like, that's the type of news that gets put out is please, I can't do this myself, I'm just gonna die again. The type of news that gets put out are the shock value things that are going to get people's attention. It's just like, and the same thing is true for social media, where the types of things that go viral on social media are just shock value things that are negative. And it sucks because then not only are you spending all of your time in this like digital world completely disconnected from real people, not only is it making it harder and harder to socialize, like, everything that you're consuming on there is also just bad. Like, everything that you're consuming on there is like damaging to your psyche because it's like, and it's very hyper individualized, like everything is on there. Like, I can't, because I want to say, like, from my experience, like, the war going on in Israel and Gaza, I was constantly fed just videos of people, like, suffering and dying. That doesn't feel good to consume, but it also doesn't feel good to scroll away from. I feel guilty scrolling away from it, you know? And just generally things like that where it's something negative going on in the world where I feel like I need to pay attention to this for the sake of, like, these people that are getting hurt. But, like, push. I feel like I need to pay attention to this for the sake of those people, but at the same time, I it's like damaging my mental health to think about it all of the time, because like the human mind wasn't meant to worry about people more than like the people in your village. Like it was meant to deal with about that many people. And when you tell your mind that like there's something going on that's like people are dying, and like I when you tell your brain about the horrible things happening around the world all of the time, your brain immediately reacts like it's happening to the people around you in your community, because that's what your brain knows how to deal with. Your brain didn't like evolve to deal with worldwide stuff. It's not, we haven't had worldwide connection for very long at all. So the human mind hasn't like learned to deal with it yet. It just is still dealing with everything like it's on a small scale, so it freaks out. And you get a lot of reactions to that content, but it's damaging to the human mind to consume that all of the time, because especially if you're being fed it all of the time and your brain doesn't know how to differentiate that it's really far away from you and there's nothing that you specifically can do about it, it just doesn't, like, I don't know, it just feels bad. And it's no wonder that everyone has bad mental health, because on top of everything that's going on, everything that I have talked about, you also just have, like, you're being fed horrible things all of the time. You're being fed, like, the worst parts of humanity and the most inhumane parts of humanity, with people killing each other and like neglecting dying people, you know, people killing children. And I don't, so it, like, it sucks that that's kind of our only option, because like, because that's just the culture that has been built, you know, like that's because, and then on top of that, because there's always more, so then not only is it just like you're on your phone all of the time, I'm gonna die, no, not only are you on your phone all of the time and it sucks, oh, I had to get shut down too, man, not only are you on your phone all of the time and it's horrible for your mental health and it's distancing you from the people around you, but because you're on your phone all of the time, that makes work-life balance hard as well. So the economy is doing bad and work feels pointless in the first place. So like the like it feels like my job isn't paying me enough, I can't afford to live in this economy, but it was hard to find a job in the first place. Or if you're in a position where you don't have a job, help me, I don't have a job, I don't have any money, you know? But like, the economy is doing so bad in the first place that work is stressful and most of the time you don't like it. And then, a lot of the time people are being on call more than the hours that they're getting paid for and required to work, because of this overdependence on technology and just people being on their phones all of the time. It's expected that since you're on your phone all of the time, you can respond to this work email right away outside of normal working hours, that you're sort of on call all of the time. Like, I mean, I just checked my phone to get a text. That wasn't an example of what was going on, but my manager texted me earlier today, what's your work availability like for this week? And I am like not at work right now. I don't want to be thinking about work right now. I'm off the clock. It's not like, come on. What? Ooh. Um, I'm off the clock. I shouldn't need to be thinking about work. And I know that that's a relatively minor thing, but also I work a very entry level job and I work part time. I'm thinking more of like the same thing being extended where a boss would send an email, but in a more like corporate 9 to 5 type of setting where they're asking you to do work or schedule a meeting or schedule this or that other thing or a million things that you have to think about when you're off the clock and you're at home. But you can't just not respond to it, even though you're off the clock and at home, and this is supposed to be your free time, because it's so expected that you're on your phone all of the time or on your computer all of the time, that you're checking your email, that you're going to be, like, expected to also respond to work stuff at that, like, immediately, basically. Like, I had to respond to my boss and give him my availability, where, when really, like, I had a day off, I'd really just rather not think about work, you know? And it's not like, in my case, I was being asked to do any work, but it makes it hard to enjoy the days that I have off if my boss is texting me, you know? And then I have to worry about it and think about it. I have to think about, like, when I have work. I have to think about it. I have to pull up my calendar, pull up all of the days that I am scheduled for work already, pull up when I'm free, when I can work during this week, text my boss when I'm free that week. Now work is on my mind and I'm taken out of just enjoying the day because I need to think about work and when I'm going to have to work next. And that makes it even more stressful than it already is to work in this economy that feels like it's failing, to work in this economy that feels like no one's getting paid enough, and it feels like it's caving in on itself because it's expecting exponential growth and everyone knows that's not possible, but no one wants to actually put a cap on it. So no one wants to actually, like, say, hey, growth isn't really possible past this point, because then you're deemed a failing business. So it's like, we can't, everyone knows that it's unsustainable, but no one wants to say, okay, here's the point where we can stop, because that's admitting defeat. But it feels like the system is just eating itself, and it's a horrible system to be a part of, and now you're thinking about it more often than you already are, because you're expected to be on call all of the time. You're expected to be, like, available all of the time, because it's expected that you're on a device all of the time. And that sucks, because that's not the way that it's supposed to be, and that's not the way it historically has been, but people haven't historically been on technology all of the time, so it wouldn't have been a reasonable thing to expect before recently, you know? This is not my game. Oh well, that's fine. I had some good games last video. This one's just not. But so, like, not only is it feels like the entire economy is crumbling. It feels like I can't connect with anyone. It feels like I can't just, like, live because every force is working against me. Now I'm being even more aware of that, or I'm being made more aware of that system and everything working against me, because now my boss is texting me when I'm off the clock and I shouldn't need to be thinking about work, but all of a sudden I'm thinking about work, and it's taking away from the time that I wasn't, like, hanging out with anyone, but I was out of the house. I was off doing something else and work wasn't on my mind, and then all of a sudden I'm taken out of that nice day off, because now I need to think about work. And it's no wonder that everyone is stressed about work all of the time, because you're expected to be thinking about work all of the time. And if you're not thinking about work all of the time, you're extremely replaceable and you can't find another job. So, like, it feels bad. It feels quite bad. And it's not it's not something that anyone can change, and it's not something that's like, oh my goodness, and it's not specific to any one business. It just makes everything a little bit worse, or like it's not specific to, it's everyone and it's everything. Everyone has a similar experience with, they're not on the clock, but they get, like if you're working a part-time job, I assume that most people have gotten that exact same text of, when are you free? When can you work? When I'm not at work. When historically, if I'm working a part-time job, that would be asked when I'm on the clock or in the building, when obviously I'm thinking about work if I'm in the building of my work, and my manager would approach me and say, hey, when are you free next? I'm making the next schedule, type of thing, you know? But like now it's happening outside of work, so I'm not getting paid for the time that I'm thinking about work. But like, I'm not getting paid for the time that I'm thinking about work, and I'm not at work, and I'm not doing work, but the fact that I'm thinking about it is stressing me out in the context of work, you know? Because work is something that's inherently stressful. Thinking about money is something that's inherently stressful, especially as someone in my generation. And so when I'm being asked to think about it more often, I did not deserve a B minus. It was not a good game. Unless, okay, never mind. I agree. I'm surprised I got that high of a crowd control because I could not stop Mundo for the life of me. He had that shield, so I couldn't move him at all. But yay, I win. I don't win. We lost. I did poorly, but like I won the crowd control. Anyway, so all of these factors that are like essentially universal is like everyone is aware of the economy, more or less. There are some people that are like, I don't want to say like in denial, but there are some people that are more optimistic and a lot of people that are more realistic. But like the economy is more or less a universal factor that everyone is sort of aware that things are going in a direction that most of us don't like. That the only people that I really think like are the big business owners and the people that think that one day they are going to be big business owners. And that everyone is tied to their phones instead of genuine connection, and then as a result of that, the world is being rebuilt around us to favor us just going on our phones instead of the genuine connection, because the places that did previously allow for genuine connection are just sort of, because that's not the societal norm anymore, that's not being as like emphasized or accepted. And then the whole work-life balance thing, and then everything. And no one really has any, like, you can't really avoid any of it. Like, you can't really avoid, like, getting a job. Oh, you suck. Like, you can't really avoid getting a job unless your parents have a lot of money, in which case, maybe you just don't have to worry about anything, I don't know. But, I mean, that's not even true, because the economy, even if you take out the economy factors, the fact that everyone is tied to their phones, the fact that things, like the society is being rebuilt around ingenuine connection, or like not hanging out with people in person, and like just like the fact that you're more acutely aware of the things going on around the world that are bad, even if you don't have to worry about the financial stuff, even if you don't have to worry about the economy because your parents are well off, you can't really avoid the rest of the stuff. And yeah, you could not get social media, which is what I'm going to get into now. I was going to wait for this second game for that. I had the thought a bit ago, but I was like, no, that's something that I need to talk to separately, because guess what? I don't have social media. I deleted every social media but YouTube and Pinterest 8 months ago. Most of them before that. I deleted the last one 8 months ago. I haven't had social media in close to a year. Actually, now probably like 9 months. I haven't had social media in close to a year. And I'm still feeling these effects because it's a societal one. Because if you opt out of the if you opt out of what's like the traditional social media, like if you opt out of actually consuming the stuff on TikTok, then what happens is, first of all, you get fed the stuff on YouTube anyways. And I could delete YouTube, but at a certain point I do feel like if I I use YouTube for like help on genuine things. Like if I don't know how to do something, I usually opt for YouTube instead of just looking it up. It's easier for me to have a video of someone watching something, or it's easier to watch a video of someone teaching me how to do something, or watch a video of someone doing something, than attempting to read an article and following along. Even if the article has pictures, it's usually just easier to watch a video. So that was something that I couldn't justify deleting, because also, you know, the fact that I post things on here every once in a while, I it's something that I couldn't delete. And Pinterest as well, that's a stupider one, because you don't really get fed the depressing stuff on Pinterest. It's more just like aesthetic stuff, and who cares? But the thing is that when you delete TikTok and Instagram, you're not fed this negative content as much. But it turns out that there was a secret little connection between people my age. There is a secret, like, scraps of monoculture that all of a sudden I'm missing out on, and I didn't even know it existed in the first place, because when everyone is on social media, when everyone's on social media, it feels like everyone is on their own little island, and it feels like everything that everyone's consuming is completely separate from one another, and you need to luck out and have, like, a happenstance connection with someone already, have, like, interests in common already, so you would happen to consume the same content to have any sort of connection. That was my understanding of it. That was what I thought, until I realized that apparently that's not true. Apparently there is a little tiny, like, fragment of monoculture in the way that people generally talk online, and the music that people listen to online. Because without, not without the radio, I guess some people still listen to it, but with 90% of people not listening to the radio anymore and just opting for their own personal music, it is harder to share a connection of music with people. Which, I just side tangent about that, my senior prom in 2024 included basically only music from, like, the 2010s and like early 2000s, because that was the last time that everyone knew the same music. So, like, it, like, like, they played, like, Last Friday Night, and, like, I don't know, I'm trying to think of, like, specific, I think they played, like, Starships. They played, like, at my senior prom, they were playing songs that were outdated by at least 10 years. Because that was the last time that everyone listened to the same music. That was the same time that everyone had that connection. And there is a secret little connection with TikTok. So it's not the full song most of the time. Like, sometimes songs will trend and people will listen to the full versions, but a lot of the time it's just 30-second to a minute snippets of songs that trend, and everyone knows that part. So a song will play and everyone will just sort of be like, do I know this song? Have I heard it before? And it gets to the part and they're like, oh yeah, I know all the words to this, whatever. Oh, we're remaking. Oh well. Like, I, what was I gonna say? Yep. Okay. But, what was I gonna say? Um, no one knows the whole song, but it gets to that like 30-second part, and you're like, oh, I know these words. I know all the words to this 30-second part. And then you go back to sort of like mumbling it because now you know that you know the song, but you don't know the rest of the song because you've never listened to it in full. Um, Now that it's been 8 months since I've been on TikTok, I don't know those snippets anymore. I see that certain songs are trending because, like, I'll hop on Spotify and be recommended certain songs, but I don't know any of it, and I don't really care because a lot of the time it's just the song is trending, but it's not really my type of thing. And on TikTok, I was exposed to that a lot because it was the background audio to a lot of posts. If something's trending, or if a song is trending, and you want your TikTok to do well, you might put a trending song on the background of that TikTok so that it gets like pushed by the algorithm because the algorithm says things with this song are trending because this song is trending. So maybe it'll pick up your video and feed it to more people, you know? Um, but I, but now I don't see those 30-second snippets, even if it wasn't music, or even if it wasn't a song that I would have liked in the first place. Having those little snippets and like words to reference of like if the song has words, people reference those like words or phrases that are in the song. Like it's just a little thing that I'm missing out on. It's hard for me to find new music because TikTok was my main source of finding new music. And that little bit of connection that I didn't even realize was there in the first place until I got rid of it, is also missing. I was talking to my cousins who are all like they're say age range 11 to 14. So we don't really have all that much in common in the first place. They were talking about all of these songs that they liked, and all of them liked it, and all of them had heard these same songs, and they all knew the dances to them and whatever. And I know that if I was on social media, I wouldn't have known the dances, but I would have known little snippets of the songs, because I used to. I was never on the side of TikTok that had dances, but I was able to, since those dances were trending and the audios were trending, people on my side of TikTok making content that I liked more would still use those songs and reference things that happened in the more popular TikToks, so it would sort of trickle down to stuff that I consumed. And so there was a little bit of monoculture in just generally referenced terms, phrases, songs, or even like events that now I miss out on. Now there's things that I'm completely 100% not seeing at all, where, you know, previously it would just be like, I've heard that song once or twice, and yeah, a couple of people have said that phrase before. Now I'm seeing none of it. And again, these are like remnants of a monoculture. It's not there anymore. Everything is ultra fragmented. But apparently there was some little dust left, you know, like just these little jokes that permeate the different islands, you know. Okay, never mind. I was gonna try to remake vote, but didn't have one. Okay. But I don't know, like, it's just, now there is no connection between me and any given other person. And I think that my mental health has been better since I deleted TikTok and Instagram. I think that, like, it was a good decision, because my attention span has improved. I've gotten more into doing hobbies. I feel like I've become more of a person rather than someone just sort of like sedated by a constant feed of serotonin. Because not to mention how that also, like, even if the stuff wasn't always negative, constantly being stimulated and having extremely short attention span and an inability to like feel satisfied by more long-term things because you're so used to the short-term gratification, is bad. There's a million things that are bad with social media. It's extremely addictive and just not pleasant to consume. Everything is bad about it. But if you're not on it, it's almost worse, because then not only do you, like, still have the factors about, like, the economy looming on you, you still get, like, from other sources, the dread from all of the negative content being pushed. You still get the isolation because the world has been built around being focused on social media. And then on top of that, instead of getting extremely short attention spans and instead of consuming the content itself, you just now have no connection with the people around you that already barely existed because the world has been built around individuality. Now there's absolutely nothing, so you're just miserable and also alone. You can't win. And the thing is, like, I was on social media enough for, like, I did talk about, in one of these videos before, deleting social media, because I deleted it a while ago, and this is something that, you know, I've been, like, wanting to talk about for a bit, but, like, I deleted social media, and in that video I was trying to be more positive about it and do a more positive spin, because, yes, I did start picking up hobbies as a result of it, and actually doing things more often rather than just sitting there and letting my device entertain me. I talked about how I've been pretty good at just sort of assuming what things mean, because when I'm in an environment all of the time with people making certain, like, jokes about certain words, and when I'm in, like, a group of people that know that I don't have social media, that I'm comfortable enough to ask, hey, what does that mean? What are you referencing there? I am able to pick up most of it, you know? Like, at least people that I'm friends with that I know have similar interests to me that can sort of, like, recite almost the stuff that I'm missing. I am able to make the connections with, like, after a few questions about it most of the time, I'm able to, like, figure out what the jokes are, what's trending, and things like that, but it's an extra step, and it does feel very isolating, to just sort of not have that actual connection, to have it be like a secondhand connection, because it feels like the way that talking to someone over social media isn't really talking to them. Understanding a, like, monoculture reference secondhand feels like it's not real understanding of the reference in that same way. So I still feel that, like, the disconnect and all of, like, the social repercussions of it, despite not being on social media, because everyone is on social media. It is a necessary, like, part of interacting with people. And again, I'm able to, like, survive without it, because I was on it a lot, like an unhealthy amount, for several years. So I sort of picked up the nuances of how it works. But it's, like, it's still extremely isolating, and it doesn't just fix everything. It doesn't make me happier and immediately have me go back to the 80s when every conversation was genuine, because that's not true of all of the people that I interact with, and I really don't think it ever will be true of all of the people that I interact with, because it's very ingrained in our society. And, I mean, I am hoping when I go to college, I'll find people that also have, like, renounced social media like me, because, like, there are some people, but the thing is that if you had never had social media in the first place, because there are people whose parents put restrictions on their phones and they were never able to have social media in the first place, and those people don't know how to socially interact with everyone else. You can always pick out of a crowd who doesn't have social media, because they don't interact like everyone else. I can pass off as quote normal, which feels horrible to say, but I'm just being honest. I can pass off as someone that has social media because I did have social media for a really long time. And so I know sort of how things work around there. And how, dude, you suck. I know how things work on social media, what things trend, what things are funny, because, I saw it. If you never saw it in the first place, you become a social reject because you don't know how to make jokes the way that everyone else does. You don't know how to, bro, you don't know how to generally interact with people the way that everyone else does because you haven't learned it. You didn't have that experience with, it's just, that's... I don't... it's hard to explain. I think I'm getting it across well enough that it's you need to have social media to understand how people my age interact. If you have never had social media, you cannot have... it's extremely difficult to have a connection with someone because you just don't understand anything that's going on. It's just... It's hard, because even though not everyone's consuming the same stuff, it sort of follows the same formula, because the same types of things trend, and the same types of things are funny. I mean, everyone can tell when something is funny, but different things are funny on the internet than in real life. It's just, it's hard to explain because it's extremely nuanced, and it's just sort of weird the way that... yes. It's just sort of weird the way that internet humor works, and you need to be on the internet for a really long time to be able to decipher it. So the solution isn't even to have never been on the internet, because that won't work. You're a social outcast if you've never been on the internet. The solution isn't to delete social media, because the longer you're without social media, the more you become a social outcast. There isn't really a solution to this, because if you get rid of the problem, it makes everything worse. Okay, buddy. Yes, awesome, dude. He's not gonna fist bump me back. Oh, yay, hooray. It's just the society is built around social media being the core focus. Even when people aren't intentionally doing it, it still happens. It has become the core of everything, and that's making everyone upset, because if you're on social media, you lose. If you're on social media, you have a horrible attention span. You're constantly exposed to horrors. You feel like you haven't talked to a real, you will go days without talking to a real person because you're just on the internet listening to someone talk without having that genuine conversation. Or if you are talking to someone, it's through a screen, it's through text, or it's through call, or it's not as genuine as a real connection. And if you are if you don't have social media and you do prioritize these real hangouts, you're weird. And then you don't understand the internet language and the way that people talk nowadays, because now you're isolated from the fragments of monoculture. And let's not forget that the economy is awful. Let's not forget that even outside of this issue, even though this is the main issue in my opinion, it's all the phone's fault, that the economy also sucks, that work culture also sucks, that generally everything else that's going on is bad, that things kind of feel stagnant because no one really wants progress because most people have, are starting to feel like progress is a bad thing. Like, it's, I could have gotten an S. Oh well. Um, like, it's it's no wonder that there is a mental health crisis among Gen Z, because how wouldn't there be? How couldn't there be? With all of these factors, and I'm definitely missing some. I'm probably going to finish recording this and be like, there's like 5 more factors I didn't even think about. I think that the core ones are the economy sucks, work culture sucks, social media sucks. I think there was another one I talked about in this video that I'm already forgetting because there's just a million things happening all of the time. Everyone is just stressed and lonely and upset all of the time, and everyone wishes that they could fix it, but no one can because no one can. Like, the only people that can fix it are if you put in some like hardcore legislation, but at this point I feel like we're too far gone. Like, if you got rid of all social media today, someone would make it again because there's going to be a void there, because this has been a thing for like, I don't know, I feel like social media as we know it has pretty much been around for like 10 years. Like, this is not new at this point. This is like, it's not something that you can really reverse. It's very ingrained in culture and the way that people interact with each other, and if it was removed, it would be brought back, even though everyone agrees that it's a bad thing. It's just necessary now for the way that we interact with each other. If you got rid of all social media, YouTube would become that, because I think if they got rid of all social media, YouTube wouldn't count. YouTube is kind of fundamentally something different, but YouTube has shorts, and people would just move to that, and people would just start treating YouTube the same way that they do the rest of the social media sites, because I do that, first of all, because there's still a void in my life about it, and so I treat YouTube and Pinterest like social media, even though they're not, and they are like fundamentally very different and better for my mental health in general. It's still like, I treat it like social media. I go on it as much as I go on social media because the culture has shifted away from hanging out in person and onto generally just like, I don't know, people interacting digitally. So I can't hang out with someone in person all of the time. I need to kill time on YouTube. Anyway, I just realized that my course selection is out, so I'm gonna do that. I'm 9 minutes late. Oh no! I'm over an hour. That's fine. That was basically the end of what I had to say anyway. I was just kind of giving a conclusion statement. The mental health crisis, how could it be? How could it be? There's a million factors, and 1,000,001 factors, because I'm missing one of them. I know I am, and I'm probably going to make a part 2. But I just need to yap. I just need to talk about it, because it sucks. Everything sucks. Here sucks. Society sucks. I don't have social media, and I hope that more people join me in that movement. But it's bad either way. Oh well. Anyway, see you guys in the next one. Okay, bye.